Welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing less of a tutorial but more of a tribute to my wonderful dog Hippu. Unfortunately, he has passed away in the middle of January. He has been around 12 and a half years old, so not very old, but he was quite a big dog, and he showed already some early signs of joint problems, and he couldn't see really well. But instead of focusing on his passing, I want to focus more what he was when he was still with us. He was a wonderful dog, but not always without challenges. In fact, Hippu was a rescue dog, so we adopted him from Spain, and the reason why was that when I went on holidays with my parents, I always saw those stray dogs, so I promised myself when I grow up and I get my first dog that it should be a stray dog. So Hippie itself was not our first choice because we really wanted to have this black energetic dog. However, it was not recommended to us as we were still living in a flat, and it was a bigger dog as well, so we got some other options which might have been a little bit better as a first rescue dog. There were some females, and there was also Hippu or Hippie. He was very shy, and he has been in the shelter for about 1.5 years. Nobody was really that much interested into him, so we decided, after my husband fell in love with his long beard, that we take him. And he was very timid at first, and he was very excited to be in a new environment, and he did not know much of a snow, and so it was very exciting the first few months because he came to us in February. The first time we went outside, we met little Mops, and he was absolutely terrified of this little creature and threw himself on the snowbank like a flat fly. Till the end of his time, he was really terrified of little Mopses, although they were so much smaller than he was. Also, the first time he got away was when I fell over in the snow and he just kept on running. However, the difficult thing was that he was just learning his new name, because before he was called Boy, which I thought was a very unimaginary name. So we called him Hippie or Hippo, and he actually did listen and came back. He was a very energetic dog. He used to play a lot of this with the toys which can be pulled. But his favorite place was the outside, and he loved to discover new places. He loved the forest. He loved to go around, just to be outside. And that has never changed with old age. However, the life with a rescue dog is not always very easy. Of course, he wasn't. Of course, he peed inside. His favorite place or spot was on the bed because it was really soft. So it took a while to actually change his habits. I think it was still 2 months later that he was occasionally peeing indoors. Otherwise, it's kind of like you solve one problem and the other problem kind of like comes up again. He was obviously not used to walk on the leash, so it took a lot of work to practice that because he was pulling like crazy, and we're talking about a 25 kilograms dog, which really takes you forward. Then also what we didn't know with rescue dogs is that they might develop a leash aggression. So the older he got, around 2 years old, he developed a little bit of anxiety towards other dogs, especially which were the same size as him or taller. He just did not have the confidence to be much around other dogs, especially on the leash. At the beginning, we tried to socialize him and we took him to the dog parks where he could play with other dogs. But it was not always very easy because there was some incidents when another dog, a female, actually attacked him, and he got very anxious to go there, and after a while we gave up. Luckily, we moved to an area where there was lots of forest and we didn't really have to deal much with the issue of facing another dog, especially when it was coming towards us. And however, it did change in the last 4 years when we figured out how to train him a little bit better and accept the fact that he is anxious, and it helps to avoid dogs if you have the possibility. But I was treating him with a lot of treats and it started to get much better, and he was actually able to pass even a German Shepherd and Golden Retriever. However, hunting dogs were not his favorite, and he had particular his nemesis, which was a red retriever. Otherwise, at home, he was the most gentle dog you could imagine. He never destroyed his toys. Toys were basically his friends, and he would carry them from room to room, and they were sleeping with him all around him, or he would put them on my pillow. But after he got a little bit older, he just didn't really play that much at home, and of course we didn't have a second dog at this point. Actually, we did adopt a very old dog, a 13-year-old dog, Grams, but he was way too old to play with Hippu, although Hippu was really interested. Because of his social anxiety, he didn't make that many friends, at least not outside, and his best friends were mostly female dogs. His favorite was Husky, and although she was the same size as him, he was always very excited to see her, and when he was younger he played with her. But yes, otherwise it was more difficult to meet other dogs. There was maybe much smaller dogs who had really healthy the confidence to approach him, and although his hair was standing all up, he actually let this dog come near him and he was okay. He loved to eat, and I think in many households when you get rescue dogs it can happen easily that when they come from a dog shelter that it's you think they are very skinny and you tried to fatten them up. So it was with Hippie the same. You kind of gave him his favorite foods and he was eating a lot to the point that we had to put him on a diet. I think it was up to us that we didn't do that much sports with him, like running, because he was so much interested in sniffing all the stuff and all his dog's newspaper that he was going from side to side. So we never really attempted biking, especially with his anxieties, that it was not possible. But for example, going running, he liked to do it to a certain degree till he got very interested into something he found, and it was a full stop at this point. He didn't want to go anywhere. His favorite trips were basically going to Utsuki, so to the Tunturi, where we did a lot of hiking when he was able to do with his joints. And he loved to go after reindeers. At the beginning, I remember it was very difficult because he was pulling so much when he got the scent of a reindeer, and it was so difficult to be able to hold him. I think many of those dog leashes broke around this time, so every time we went to Utsuki we had a spare leash because it was so challenging to go after him, and he was so much in love with this place. When he saw that we prepared the van, he knew where he was going because it was just once a year that he would go into the van. We had a small cage ready, and straight in the morning he would go there, and he knew we were going back to Lapland and he would see all the nature, no dogs and just reindeers and other little creatures. He loved actually to go hiking to see different sceneries, so he would be sitting in front of the tent and watch everything around him. And then when it was time to sleep, you would be going to sleep immediately. He was more of a cat than a dog when it comes to human contact. As he was 1.5 years in a dog shelter, he did not have that much human contact, so he was really careful. He liked to be touched, but only at certain times, and of course he would be attentive and he would come around and to see what you're doing, and he would play, but when he was really in the mood for it. He loved it when I was caressing his belly, especially when going to sleep. Then he falls asleep immediately afterwards, within 5 minutes. Unfortunately, the older he got, I wasn't able to pull him towards me in the bed, so because of his joints, but he still enjoyed it now and again. Although he was not so keen on human contact, as kind of like cuddling up to you like some other dogs might do. He was still very happy to be with us and to be close to us. So every time when going to sleep, it didn't matter how hot it was, he would still come to the bed, and then 5 minutes later to go back to the floor where he could cool down. He didn't really like to go to water, although the older he got, he didn't mind to have a shower and go to the bathroom. Before, it was a little bit more of a challenge to push a 25-kilogram dog into the shower, even especially if he didn't really want to. And yes, he didn't really like to go to the sea as much, but when it got really hot, I was walking with him to get him into the sea, to get him a little bit more wet, so he could take the heat, because he was basically a black dog, especially on the top. So, but after a while, he didn't mind. However, I remember when we got him, he was really scared of water because he did not know it so much, and in fact he was not able to swim very well. So we made him go to swimming classes for dogs so that he gets used to the water, and at the end of the day it did work out. Yes, his favorite place was the nature, going after reindeers, of course on the leash, and we dragging behind the leash. But he loved the adventures outside. And also exploring our backyard, running around. He luckily never ran away, in a sense, because we don't have really a fence, but he always stayed within the property and tried to explore what was there, who has been there, especially as rabbit or some bigger birds. His favorite food was chicken. Every time when I prepared chicken, he was just hovering around the kitchen, which he usually wouldn't go into, and waiting that he gets a piece of meat. But he also loved buttermilk, so although he would get a little bit of that, but he also loved it when it's, for example, buttermilk put into the pancakes. And he really was so keen, it didn't matter what age he was, that he was around the table and waiting for his little portion of a pancake. Although at a later age we were quite careful not to give him too much fat. He used to play as a puppy quite a lot, but not necessarily with the ball, although he loved it when the ball was bouncing on the floor, although he would not get it, but he would he liked dancing around the ball when it was bouncing from the floor, so that was his only way of playing with balls. He was a wonderful dog and I miss him so much. Gave us so much joy and taught us so much about dogs and about ourselves. Okay, thank you for watching, and maybe you were even listening to the story, so thank you for that. Bye.